Well, I want to welcome everyone and thank you for attending Hawthorne University's webinar series. I'm Paula Bartholomew, the Director of Online Events, and it's really a pleasure to be here together and to be able to facilitate this presentation. We'll have time for your questions and we'll answer them at the end of the presentation. So please write them into the webinar question panel at any time, just so you're in queue. And I want to say I think we can expect some terrific information here today, but please don't fret if you miss something. This presentation will be recorded and it'll be available for replay on our website. I see a number of new people that are checking in right now. So I just want to say that if you're listening for the first time, that Hawthorne University's Holistic Health and Webinar series is a platform that's bringing excellent information and resources for our students and our alumni and faculty to augment their Hawthorne education and to be able to expose us to a wealth of knowledge and experience that our guest presenters bring to the table again and again. To me, the many ways that our students and grads are using their Hawthorne education in their practices is nothing short of amazing. We have a variety of degree and certificate programs at Hawthorne. Some of those are for pursuing clinical track with the goal of working directly with clients, and other programs are dedicated to those seeking to primarily educate, such as writing books, develop courses, workshops, programs, do public speaking, or teach for a school. And then there's other options for those who simply want to learn valuable, credible information in a conducive environment. The success of our students is a testament to Hawthorne's mission and principles to provide quality, affordable, holistic health and nutrition education. These webinars are open to the interested public too, because we all love to learn more at Hawthorne. Okay, speaking of learning more at Hawthorne, right now it is truly my honor and delight to announce that Hawthorne University has been recently accredited by the Distance Education Accrediting Commission, that's DEAC. This is really an important milestone in the continuing growth and success of our university, because accreditation is a very reliable indicator of the value and quality of the education that an institution offers. And so in receiving this grant of accreditation, Hawthorne has demonstrated its commitment to higher educational standards, to ethical business practices that assure quality, accountability, and improvement in higher education. And the scope of this accreditation extends to all of our degree programs. We have a Doctor of Science degree and three master degrees, and to all of our certificate programs as well, as we have 4 of those. So you can review any of these programs from our website to get more details on that. And I just want to say just how giddy I am and happy we all are to share this important accomplishment with you. And we welcome you to share it with others too. All right, back to learning more at Hawthorne. Today, we get to welcome David Crow back to share his presentation on combining herbs and essential oils, highly effective remedies for common health challenges. This will be a part 1 of a 2-part presentation. And I think it's just such a timely topic because essential oils is exploding these days. And so combining herbs and essential oils can be extremely effective and safe. And I want to let you know that David has presented for Hawthorne previously back in January 3rd, 2017. He was covering an introduction to the safe use of essential oils. And on October 3rd, 2017, he presented his initial presentation on combining herbs and essential oils. Both of these were terrific, and I hope you will listen to them too. They're in our archives right now, posted on our website. In today's presentation, David will share his extensive information on herbs and essential oil formulas for specific conditions, focusing on digestion and detoxification. I just think this is a huge bonus for our professional toolkits for sure. In part 2, David will be back in 2 weeks with a focus on the nervous system with this. And for those who have not met David yet, let me say how delighted I am and give you a little bit of background. He's an acupuncturist and an herbalist with over 30 years of experience. He's the author of several great books, including In Search of the Medicine Buddha. It's a book about his studies of Tibetan and Ayurvedic medicine in the Himalayas. David's a well-known lecturer in the field of natural medicine, and his work is largely focused on the synthesis of botanical medicine, ecology, and spirituality. He's the founder of Floricopia, a company that supports ecologically sustainable agriculture through the production of essential oils and aromatic treasures. And with that, I can say it's a pleasure to have you with us again, David.
Thank you, Paula. Very
You're
nice
welcome.
to be back.
It's really nice. I'm eager to learn more about herbs and essential oils, and that'll support us to understand and actually be able to incorporate this information. So thank you for what you're going to bring to us today.
My pleasure. All right. Shall we just jump right in?
I'm ready for you when you are.
Okay, great. Welcome to everybody. And as Paula mentioned, this is a continuation of the previous introduction that we did a while back. It's a very big subject, so we can easily spend many modules on this. And before we go any further, Paula, congratulations on the accreditation.
Thank you, David.
That's very big. So, okay. So let's talk about combining herbs and essential oils for very specific uses. In the last module, the introduction to this big subject, I discussed some basic principles. And those of you who were attending that, you might remember that we covered different types of herbs in different therapeutic categories, and then discussed how different kinds of essential oils and aromatherapy can be combined. And the basic idea here is that herbal medicine is very diverse, and there's many ways that we can administer and ingest the plants. So essential oils as aromatherapy represent one way that we can use plant medicine. And it has some strengths and weaknesses, and it is also somewhat of a specialized subject in terms of administration, because the essential oils are highly concentrated. And because they're highly concentrated, that means that there are some safety issues. And unfortunately, because of widespread marketing, essential oils are creating, or the unsafe use of essential oils are creating an epidemic of adverse reactions, toxicity cases, so forth. This is something that we don't need to spend any time on, because the safe uses are all going to be discussed here. So I just want to bring to your attention that's one of the reasons why it's really important to combine herbs and essential oils, because there is this misconception that essential oils are better because they're stronger. And if they're stronger, then they're going to be more effective. But the reality is, the more concentrated a plant substance becomes, on the one hand, it does become more powerful, but on the other hand, its range of safety becomes less. So the problem with essential oils is that there's a very narrow margin between the safe dose and a toxic dose. And this is especially true in the widespread misuse of oils when people are being advised to take them undiluted internally. So when people hear that essential oils are so great and they have so many wonderful virtues, that is all correct. But from a clinical standpoint, essential oils are actually very limited in what we can do with them, because there are so many potential problems that can come from improper use. And a lot of the claims that are being made about essential oils are simply not verifiable, because they are very new. There's a misconception that essential oils actually have been used for thousands of years, but that's historically incorrect. Most essential oils have only been around for a few centuries, and even 100 years ago, they were not widely available. I mean, even 20 years ago, they weren't widely available. So the number of species that are widely available now is a completely new phenomenon, and it represents an entirely new field of medicine. So there are some ways that we can understand the uses of essential oils by looking back at their historical use of the whole plant form, And that gives us a direct link to combining the herbs and the oils together, because in many cases, people are being advised, take this undiluted essential oil internally for the digestive system. And sometimes people can do that for a limited time, but there are many documented cases of starting to develop pretty serious gastric inflammation and toxicity and so forth. And the oils used in that form are not the best way to practice herbal medicine. So what do we do then? Well, that's where we can look at using the whole plant form as an alternative. And so one of the things we're going to see here as a basic principle as we go through this is that we are using the herbs that contain the essential oils, except that we are using them in a whole plant form in different preparations. And so in that sense, we are getting the essential oils in a very safe, natural, biocompatible level. So this is one of the ways that we can administer the aromatic compounds with all of their benefits without running into the whole range of serious inflammatory reactions that can come from using them either internally or externally in undiluted form. So as we go through this, you're going to see, first of all, there's a lot of information. This is, it's fairly dry. It's basically a pharmacopoeia. It's a bunch of recipes, and we're covering things for different conditions. As we go, I am going to use these different formulas to illustrate certain principles. So we don't need to spend an hour with me just telling you, okay, here's this formula, because it's right there in writing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a commentary about these different formulas so that you will understand the deeper principles of combining herbs and essential oils as they are given. So our first group of formulas is for dyspepsia and indigestion. Okay, this is in the bigger category of formulas for the digestive system. We're going to spend about 30 minutes on this section and then spend 30 minutes on the second section on supporting detoxification. So that's obviously very little time for a very big discussion. But each of these two categories is broken down into different formulas for specific common problems. These are things that everybody has at some point, and the idea with putting these formulas together is that you can just look at these and they're commonly available ingredients, herbs and essential oils, very easy to get. Most of you probably have some of these already. And we can just look at, okay, take this in this form and use this in this form, and it will treat this. So let's jump in. First section, dyspepsia and indigestion. Okay, well, dyspepsia is basically a whole range of symptoms, which we don't need to get into. I'm sure you have the background and training to know what dyspepsia is. Upper GI, stagnation, fullness, pain, discomfort. Closely related to indigestion. Indigestion is one of the symptoms of dyspepsia. Dyspepsia can come from a lot of different things. One of the ideas here in this collection of formulas is that home recipes like this can be used diagnostically, because a lot of people who have dyspepsia, it can be coming from a whole range of different things, and they may not actually know what is causing it, but they can try different kinds of herbs. And trying different kinds of herbs and seeing the cause and effect and what helps them can also be informative and diagnostic. So let's look at Formula 1 just as an example of this principle here. So first, we start with the herb part. And this is going to be 1 tablespoon each of chamomile flowers, peppermint leaves, fennel seeds, cardamom seeds, and fresh ginger, fresh chopped ginger. So what we're going to do is put this whole thing into a French press and pour 2 cups of hot water over it, and we're going to let it steep for 15 minutes, and then we're going to press it and strain it out, and then we're going to take a half a cup 2 to 4 times a day. Now you're going to see these kind of recipes repeated over and over again. There's several basic formulas and ways of preparing herbs. So it's fairly standard. There's nothing complicated here. It's basically just steeping chamomile, peppermint, fennel, cardamom, and some fresh ginger, okay? So the dosages are also moderate. You can increase these dosages as needed. A half a cup 2 times a day is on the lower side. A half a cup 4 times a day is on the higher side. Now, this is something that practically anybody can take. There's virtually no warnings or contraindications. So this is a good general formula for dyspepsia and indigestion, but any one of these herbs individually can also be a major herb for dyspepsia and indigestion. And that's another principle to think about here. If I'm giving you a formula, that doesn't mean that you have to use this formula. You can use 3 of these herbs, or you can use 1 of these herbs, okay? They're all going to be beneficial. Now, let's look at combining with the essential oils. So there's a couple different possibilities here. There's actually a whole range of possibilities. So first of all, how are essential oils and aromatherapy going to be related to dyspepsia and indigestion? Well, they're going to work through the olfactory system. They're going to work through stimulating the appetite. They're not going to work by taking them internally. And this is a very different approach than people who are being told, oh, you have dyspepsia or indigestion. Well, you should try taking a drop of ginger essential oil. Well, that's a guaranteed recipe for gastritis, to take a drop of a spice oil internally. I would say the more common one is oregano. Take a drop of oregano oil 3 to 4 times a day, or I have heard even much higher doses. Take 3 or 4 drops 3 or 4 times a day. That's a guaranteed recipe for a gastric disaster. And so this is how we use the essential oils. We don't drink them. We use them through the olfactory sense. So here we have a simple recipe: ginger and Tulsi. Tulsi essential oil is very high in eugenol, which is the compound that makes clove smell like clove and taste like clove. And so Tulsi oil smells like clove, and ginger smells like ginger. Now, equal parts in a diffuser. So what does equal parts mean? Well, parts are just parts. It just means equal amounts. But for a diffuser, you can start with 1 drop each, okay? Of course, you know, if you wanted to make a blend, you could blend half and half, like 1 ounce of ginger and 1 ounce of Tulsi, and then you could put several drops of that blend in a diffuser. And the exact number of drops that you put into a diffuser really depends more on the type of diffuser that you have. So what's this going to do in a diffuser? Well, it's going to make your house smell aromatic with fragrance of food. And this is going to support digestive function by stimulating the digestive secretions. Is it a direct treatment? No, but it could increase your appetite in a way that actually helps you digest better. Now, another way to do this is to apply the essential oils diluted in a carrier oil on the abdomen. And we're going to see a lot of those kind of recipes here for the digestive symptoms. So equal parts of sweet basil and orange. Well, again, these are things that smell delicious. They're foods, they're appetizing, and so forth. We're going to dilute those in a carrier oil and apply them to the abdomen. So a good basic formula is going to be 1 ounce of a carrier oil, and this can be your choice. It can be sesame, it can be coconut. Those are 2 that are very nice, or a half and half blend. And then in 1 ounce of a carrier oil, a safe ratio is 6 drops of essential oil total. So that means 3 drops basil, 3 drops orange. And just massage it. It's nice if you warm the oil up and you massage it over the abdomen, and it's even nicer if you actually put a hot compress over it. So that's the standard way that essential oils can be used to help digestive problems. So let's look at a couple more in this category. And we can look at Formula 2. So this is a very famous formula. A lot of people know this as CCFT, coriander, cumin, and fennel. Okay, so it's equal parts of those seeds and then 2 teaspoons of that mixture and simmer it in 2 cups of water for 10 minutes with a lid, and then take a half to 1 cup 2 times a day. That in itself is a beautiful digestive aid that helps a whole range of indigestive symptoms and dyspepsia symptoms. It's very beneficial. It's very famous now. It came primarily through Ayurvedic channels. But here's a new concept for you, is that you don't have to just drink these aromatic teas. You can also put the essential oils on the belly to enhance that function, or you can put them in the diffuser to enhance that function. So here, what I'm proposing is the equal parts of coriander, cumin, and fennel seeds as tea, but then equal parts coriander, cumin, and fennel essential oils. And you can also do it in the same way of diluting it in a carrier oil and then rubbing that on the abdomen. Now, I'll mention that I gave you the ratio 6 drops of essential oil in 1 ounce of carrier oil, and that's a very low dilution. I'm sorry, it's very low concentration. It's very highly diluted. So you can safely and easily, on most of these essential oils for this purpose, you can actually double that, and you can go to 10 to 15 drops per ounce of a carrier oil. Then you can also add caraway seeds. This is an addition to this formula. And caraway is used extensively in European herbology. It is actually the #1 seed, the #1 medicinal plant for treating all kinds of dyspepsia. So you can add the caraway seeds, and you can also add caraway oil. All right, so let's take a look at the functioning of these. All of these are based on essential oils and aromatics. It's just that we're using 2 different forms of essential oil preparations. One is in the aromatic herbs taken internally in a safe biocompatible level, and the other is diluting the essential oils for external use on the abdomen or in the diffuser. So let's look at a different concept here, and we're still in the section on dyspepsia and indigestion. So let's look at, how about Formula 3? Okay, we're not going to be able to cover all of these, but just want to give you some typical examples here. Formula 3, again, aromatics, caraway, anise, fennel, mint, and lemon balm. Okay, again, these are all aromatics, same basic concept of blending and preparation. And what's different here is now we're starting to move into a different category of herbs, and what we have here is lemon balm. And lemon balm is going to start to emerge now in other formulas, because lemon balm is a major herb for relaxing the nervous system where it interfaces with the digestive system. So now we're starting to see the use of an aromatic that is not just antispasmodic and anti-inflammatory like the peppermint and chamomile and so on, but lemon balm is actually very relaxant, and we're going to see lemon balm a lot in the section on the nervous system. So this is a very straightforward formula again, and here we can also bring in a couple new essential oils, equal parts of myrtle and lavender. Okay, so myrtle is very aromatic. It's more warming, spicy, and stimulant, and lavender is very cooling. So here we get a different kind of effect from the essential oils, but again, it's the same basic concept. Equal parts meaning, okay, 1 drop each, or 3 drops each in 1 ounce of carrier oil. So these formulas are going to start to appear very repetitious. What I'm going to do now is speed things up, and I'm going to start picking out individual differences in these formulas so you get an idea of how we're treating different things, because obviously there's a lot of ways that we can treat dyspepsia. So far, all the things we're talking about are basic aromatic, relaxant, antispasmodics. But now, in Formula 4, we have the same basic aromatic seeds, but then we add yarrow. Okay, now yarrow is a bitter stimulant. What that's going to do is it's going to give more stimulating effect to the dyspeptic situation. It's going to stimulate the digestive juices more. And if you want to make that even stronger, you can add 5 drops of wormwood or gentian tincture. Now, when we move into these really strong bitter herbs like this, we're thinking more in terms of achlorhydria. As we get older, we lose our ability to secrete hydrochloric acid. And achlorhydria can lead to a kind of, it appears to be gastritis, it appears to be dyspepsia, but it's actually just stagnation of food because we don't have enough hydrochloric acid. So especially in elderly people, I would say that basically anybody who has a dyspeptic presentation, who is over 50, most likely there's some degree of hydrochloric acid deficiency that's at work. So that's where we want to start bringing in some of the bitter herbs. And that's where the yarrow is very helpful. Now, yarrow is very mild as a bitter stimulant, but the wormwood and the gentian are much stronger. Now, one of the things that you might want to consider here, this is a very low dose, very balanced with the aromatics, but when we start using the bitters, we need to think more about, okay, use them for a while and then take a break. So a formula like this is going to be very good for several weeks, take a break, another week or 2 off. With this, we're going to be using the caraway oil in a carrier oil. So caraway essential oil, same dilution as previously, very nice. It's actually surprising how effective external applications of essential oils are on the abdomen for digestive stagnation. There's quite a bit of absorption apparently into the belly and effect, and it's not just from the olfactory connection. All right, let's look at Formula 5, and what we're looking at here is catnip, and catnip is a nervine relaxant. So again, we have fennel as an aromatic, but catnip is going to be more targeting dyspepsia and indigestion because of stress. And so whenever there's anxiety, and this is especially good for kids actually, okay, because catnip is a major pediatric herb and fennel seeds are very, very safe. And so this formula is really good for indigestion in kids and adults. It's very good. So you can just reduce the dose a little bit for kids. And I'm also mentioning the use of licorice tincture here. And this is a very important point. Do not take licorice tincture or licorice in any form if you have a propensity to high blood pressure. It will increase hypertension. It will increase water stagnation. Major contraindications for kidney disease. So don't use licorice here. However, there is an alternative product, which is the DGL, which is the deglycerized licorice, or I don't have the full pronunciation for it, but it's basically taking the glyceric acid out of it.
Deglycerized. There you go.
Yeah, deglycerized, but there's actually a much longer term that's more scientific that is slipping my mind at the moment. And this is a good alternative because you can actually take the licorice, the deglycerized licorice, several times a day, and there's no warnings or contraindications. However, it does not work anywhere near as well. Okay, a couple new ideas here with the essential oil combination. Clary sage is deeply relaxing and antispasmodic, so it goes nicely with the catnip. Okay, so Formula 6 is very similar, and as we're scrolling down, James, if you could move the page for us, that'd be great. And in Formula 7, here's a nice new one, which is a dropper of Linden Tincture. Linden is, the flowers and leaves are used, and it's in a similar classification as lemon balm, which is a very gentle, safe, nervine relaxant. And it's very nice to mix with all kinds of things when you want a gentle, relaxing effect. And in this case, what we're doing is we're using the peppermint tea, which of course is a primary antispasmodic and digestive aid, with linden for mild relaxing effects. And this is also what we are using the neroli oil for. Neroli is the orange blossom oil. We're not using it for digestive effects here. We're using it for relaxing effects. So here we can see that we have covered 3 kinds of formulas since we started. One was purely aromatics. The other was aromatics with some bitter stimulants, cholagogic type of herbs that are going to stimulate the flow of bile and hydrochloric acid. And now we're looking at those that are more on the relaxing side. So orange blossom oil, 1 or 2 drops in a teaspoon of carrier oil is fine. You can use the standard recipe of 6 drops to 12 drops in 1 ounce of carrier, or just to simplify it, you could just take a teaspoon of oil and you could put 1 or 2 drops of the neroli in it. And you can also just do direct inhalation of this as a single note perfume. There's no particular warnings or contraindications about dermal application of neroli. Orange blossom oil is quite safe. The citrus oils, on the other hand, you don't want to get them on your skin, especially the ones from the cold-pressed peels, because those can be phototoxic. And so if you touch your face and then you go out in the sun, it can burn. Neroli is not that way. So you can wear neroli as a perfume. You can put a couple drops on your palm and inhale it directly, and then you can drink your tea. And so this is a nice way, actually, of combining herbs and oils that is rather obvious, but I didn't mention it, and that is make your tea, sit down, relax, drink your tea with the diffuser on. Drink your tea while you are massaging your belly. It's okay. You can lie down, massage your belly, take a few sips of the tea, massage your belly, take a few sips of the tea, or just sit down, relax, drink your tea, put a couple drops of neroli on your palms and inhale it, drink your tea, like that. So if nothing else, this whole routine is very enjoyable and it's very relaxing in itself. But it's also miraculous how effective these formulas are for dyspepsia. I can say very clearly that simple herbal remedies like this are far more effective for a wide range of digestive problems than trying to treat them with medications. Herbs are really the main treatment for simple, uncomplicated digestive problems. Okay, so Formula 8, we have the same basic concepts of aromatics. The wormwood tincture is there again, and here you're going to see the combination of citrus, bergamot, and ginger in the diffuser, direct inhalation, or properly diluted. Now, bergamot is the most phototoxic of all the essential oils. If you're putting it in a carrier oil, massaging it on your belly, it's not a problem as long as you're wearing a shirt. If you go out in the sun afterwards, just don't put bergamot oil on and then go in a tanning bed, you'll get burned. Formula 9, another relaxing aromatic. Here we have lemongrass, which is a little bit more stimulating. And we have, again, the licorice tincture. The licorice is very, very effective as a demulcent anti-inflammatory, but use the DGL if you have any concerns about its potential side effects. Excuse me. Here we have equal parts of your favorite citrus oils. Citrus oils are always very nice to use in digestive formulas because they smell like home. They smell like the kitchen, and that's always nice. All right, let's just move on to the next group here. I'm going to budget about 10 more minutes on this category, which is fine. We're on track. And then I'm going to switch over to the detoxification module at about 22. So now we get into formulas for hydrochloric acid imbalances and esophageal reflux. Now, this is a little bit more of a clinical kind of situation because you really need to determine whether you have true gastritis with excess hydrochloric acid or whether you really have more of a deficient hydrochloric acid situation with this kind of achlorhydria presentation that looks like gastritis. It feels like gastritis, but it's really just fermentation and stagnation in the stomach because of deficient hydrochloric acid. And if you take bitters, or if you take a little bit of hydrochloric acid supplementation, you actually feel better. And that's the simple way to determine. First is age, second is general appearance. So if you're younger and you're running really hot and you're drinking alcohol and eating a lot of spicy food, most likely you have a hot type. If you're older, you run cold, you have a colder constitution, you know, drinking ginger tea helps your situation, then you most likely have a cold type of hydrochloric acid deficiency. So it's important to mention that and breaking this down a little bit, because here we can see a little bit of a difference. So in the first formula, we're using licorice and golden seal tincture and slippery elm and marshmallow. That's going to really be more for the true hot type of GERD, gastric esophageal reflux disorder. That's going to be much more for the situation where you really have excess hydrochloric acid. So that's a very straightforward formula. The licorice is very demulcent. It's a #1 primary herb for gastritis. Golden seal is strongly bitter and anti-inflammatory and antibacterial, but then those are balanced in simple demulcent mucilaginous herbs, slippery elm and marshmallow. Now this is fine, but I will put again a qualifying statement here. Don't use the licorice for an extended period of time. Substitute the deglycerized licorice if necessary. So here we get into, what do we put on the abdomen? Lavender and geranium. Okay, flowers are cooling, and so therefore using lavender and geranium in the diffuser is going to have a general relaxing, cooling effect on your mood and mind. And for the abdomen, it's going to help to kind of cool down that hot type of gastritis. Now, in the second formula, we're going to see a lot of the same things repeated again here, except that we're going to bring in the fennel, and we're also going to go back to the issues about licorice, marshmallow, and marshmallow root. But here what we're going to do is we're going to use 1 drop of Roman chamomile on the abdomen. And chamomile on the abdomen is one of the first choices for gastritis in terms of aromatherapy. Chamomile in tea is the first choice for a hot type of gastritis, which is in Formula 1. So we also can look at a different approach here, which is to use flaxseed as a kind of demulcent, soothing coating when there's gastritis. And you can use that either by itself, or you can use it as a liquid to make the aromatic teas. And again, the first choices will be fennel, chamomile, peppermint, lemon balm. And again, we see coriander and citrus for external application. Now here's a few formulas for anorexia, and I'm going to just mention a few points about them because it's time to transition over to our next category. But the place where
David,
we want to...
David, excuse me for interrupting, but I'm hoping, you know, before you go to the detoxification here today, that you'll give a little bit of attention to both the food poisoning and bacterial infection, as well as some constipation. Okay, great, thank you.
No, we're going to cover all of this, but obviously because of lack of time, I'm just going to give commentary. Yes. Okay, so
understood.
Okay, so for formulas for anorexia, these are used clinically in several different situations, and the most important and the most effective places to use these are for chemotherapy patients. That's #1, and for elderly who typically have that kind of achlorhydria presentation, and also sometimes for people who have extremely nervous constitution. But when it's really for anorexia nervosa, those people have a greater need to treat something through the nervous system. That's more of what we would call in Chinese medicine a Shen disorder. The spirit is disturbed. It's not really, okay, let's wake up the appetite. Although that can be helpful. Some of this can be helpful. So it's really with elderly people, and especially when we start to lose our sense of smell and taste because of neurodegenerative conditions, when there are conditions that are beginning to manifest, such as Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, people lose their sense of taste and smell. And with that, there's frequently loss of appetite as well, because we don't enjoy our food. We can't smell it. So the essential oils can actually stimulate that. And the herbs can help bring back the appetite as well. So here are a few of the basic herbs that are used in this: gentian, angelica, cardamom, and bayberry tinctures. These are all very strong, bitter, aromatic, warming stimulants, okay? And there's also alternatives here. Ginger and peppermint is always good. And then again, we see the appetizing combination of orange and tulsi in the diffuser. Now here's a couple of things from Ayurvedic medicine. There's a recipe here, number 2, amla. Amla powder is a fruit, dried fruit powder. It's one of the ingredients in Triphala, which is very famous. Amla is sour, and it's also very rejuvenative, and it's also very stimulating to the digestive system. So that's a good one, and that can be combined with the cardamom, rosemary, and ginger in the typical uses, okay, for direct inhalation, diffuser, abdominal compress, and so forth. So amla is good. It has a mild laxative effect, but it's very rejuvenative. It's very high in natural vitamin C. So this is a good one for people who need nourishment along with stimulating the appetite. Formula 3 is another Ayurvedic formula, Trikatu. That means the 3 hots. It is long pepper, black pepper, and ginger powder, equal parts combined. It's easily available from Ayurvedic sources. That's more for people who have a really cold constitution, cold digestive system. This should not be used in cases of true gastritis, true GERD, reflux, because it can aggravate it because it's so hot and spicy. So this combination, ginger and oregano and Trikatu, this is a really hot formula for waking up the digestive system. Okay, and then finally, we see again the tinctures of wormwood and gentian and angelica in Formula 4. These are really strong, bitter stimulants when you really want to get the digestive juices flowing. Use these for shorter periods of time, and then take a break and switch over to the basic aromatics. Okay, a couple things for treating constipation here. We don't want to rely on laxatives. So dandelion root tincture is a very nice cholagogue. It stimulates the liver to produce more bile, and that has a nice laxative effect that works on the upper GI as opposed to stimulating the colon over and over again, which can produce laxative dependency. So the basic principle here, stop stimulating the colon, you're going to make it lazy, treat the liver, get the liver more active, that's going to support the colon. Now, the essential oils for abdominal massage can be very helpful also, because tension in the belly is a very big part of constipation. And movement, lack of movement, whether it's lack of exercise, just sitting a lot, this is also a major contributing factor to constipation. So what we're doing here in Formula 1, activating the flow of bile through the liver, and then we are using relaxing oils to relax the belly, basically. But fennel essential oil in abdominal massage is the #1 essential oil for treating constipation. It's very effective. Triphala powder in Formula 2, this is fairly well known. You probably all know about this. You can combine it with ginger tea. And then again, you're going to see the fennel oil. Here, I'm also adding ginger, diluted in a carrier oil. I will make one qualifying statement about all of these essential oils, even though they're in a carrier oil base. If you do this repeatedly, keep your eye out for signs of sensitivity on the skin, because even if it's diluted properly, if you're giving yourself an abdominal massage once or twice a day for a week or two, those essential oils can still start to create a little bit of irritation. All right, so here in Formula 3, we're looking at more of a classic bulking laxative type of thing, flaxseed, psyllium, which you need to take with a lot of water. This is self-explanatory. But here's a new essential oil, which is marjoram. Marjoram massaged on the belly is also a very important choice of essential oil for constipation, for digestive problems in general. And then Formula 4 is going to be more of a classic type of stimulant laxative. And here, if we can move the screen, if it isn't already, we see Cascara sagrada and Oregon grapefruit and rhubarb root powders. This is a classic stimulant laxative, and this should really only be used as a last resort. Use it infrequently, but you can definitely support that with the fennel and the other oils as well. And the clary sage is going to be very relaxing. All right, now let's take a couple of last minute comments here. We're basically on track. I don't think anybody will mind if I expound a few extra minutes. So food poisoning and bacterial infections. All right, so herbs can be very helpful for this actually, but we do have to make a distinction between things that are more acute and easily treated with folk medicine versus something more serious that you might have picked up in India or Mexico, lots of places in the world. There's all kinds of organisms that we aren't accustomed to, and actually the people all over the world never get accustomed to them either. This is to be contrasted with a genuine parasitic problem, in other words. Okay, so if you have amoebas, that's clinically, it needs the expertise of a parasitologist. An herbalist can be supportive, but real serious parasitic conditions are beyond the scope of this set of formulas. That doesn't mean that they don't help. It just means that they're going to work more on the terrain. They're going to work on the inflammation. They're going to help to support the general function and the peristalsis. They can increase the gut immunity and so forth. They can make you feel more comfortable. And sometimes that is enough to actually get rid of parasitic infections. If the peristalsis is normalized, if the bacterial ecology, healthy bacterial ecology is supported, if inflammation is brought down and so forth, many times parasitic infections can be brought under control. And if nothing else, the symptoms can be managed more. But this is really more like food poisoning. You went out somewhere with a group of people, everybody had the chicken, everybody got sick, okay? You had the vomiting and the diarrhea. That's what this is really about. So number one formula, this is really effective, is strong ginger tea, okay, with golden seal powder or golden seal tincture. And if you want to make it really strong, juice the ginger into, just take it in a shot glass, okay? That's really hot, but it's amazing. It's also very anti-inflammatory. Now, the external application here is a little blend. 2 parts cardamom and orange, 1 part peppermint. Okay, it's a little bit more of a complicated blending. So that means 2 drops of cardamom, 2 drops of orange, and 1 drop of peppermint in a carrier oil for the abdominal massage. And so now, formula 2, we're going to look at peppermint and chamomile. This is basically just soothing the symptoms. But then we're going to take the golden seal tincture as the antibacterial. And then we're going to use the licorice as the demulcent, anti-inflammatory. Now here you can also use the tincture of coptis, gold thread. And that's the Chinese alternative to golden seal. And that's what they use in traditional Chinese medicine for bacterial infections. All right, formula 3, dry oregano. Just make it like you would make peppermint tea, same basic preparation. This is how we use oregano safely internally. A lot of people, when they get parasitic infections or bacterial infections, they are frequently told, drink oregano essential oil. It's all over the internet. Okay, oregano will get rid of this and get rid of that. It's just not true because it's so caustic and inflammatory. And anybody who has a parasitic situation or a bacterial infection in the digestive tract already has a very high level of inflammation. And so taking a drop of undiluted oregano oil will burn your mouth. And then as you swallow it, it'll burn your esophagus. And if your intestines are already inflamed, it's just going to make it worse. This is one of the worst pieces of advice that so many people have been given, all right? So the way around it is we just use the dry herb, make a tea out of it, and the recipe is right there. Turmeric is also very good here for controlling infections. And you can also use the thyme and the lemon essential oil properly diluted on the abdomen. Here's another nice herb, Formula 4. Meadowsweet is very anti-inflammatory, and peppermint. Those are very nice. And again, you're going to see coptis and golden seal. And here's a new combination here, equal parts of frankincense, lavender, and neroli. Now, that's not going to get rid of anything, okay? None of these external applications are going to get rid of the bacteria. There's no way that they can because they're not coming in contact with the bacteria. What they're going to do is they're going to help regulate the terrain by relaxing the abdomen, helping the peristalsis, calming the nervous system, and having a very mild general anti-inflammatory effect. Okay, that was a lot of information, as I knew it was going to be. And let's just jump right in and talk about using herbs and essential oils for detoxification. Now here, I'm going to, we have less material to cover, and so we're still on schedule. But it's also important to talk about some of the principles here again. So one of the first pieces of misinformation to dispel and to clarify, a lot of people are being told, put essential oils undiluted on the skin. And even worse, they're telling people, put the oregano oil, just rub it all over your child's chest or back, and that's good for their immune system. Well, this is one of the main adverse reactions that's being reported at poison control centers and to the adverse reaction databases. And one of the things that is perpetuating this is this extremely ignorant observation, or this ignorant correlation that inflammation means detoxification, okay? And so what's happening is that people are being told, we'll put the oregano oil all over your the chest of your child, and it will boost their immune system, and the child ends up screaming in pain, and their chest is all inflamed. And then the parents are being told, that's good, it's a detox reaction. Well, no, it is not. It's called dermatitis, okay? It's called contact dermatitis, and it's an inflammatory burn, okay? So let's just straighten that up first, and that'll take care of a huge number of cases. We just understand that, no, you just don't do that. So how do we detox the respiratory system? Well, we actually detox the respiratory system by using essential oils in aromatherapy, because any essential oil that's going to be in a diffuser, if you are breathing eucalyptus oil and it has a decongestant effect, anything that's draining the sinuses is detoxifying to the respiratory system. Anything that's going to have an expectorant effect is going to detoxify the respiratory system. So that's the principle here with the respiratory system, is we support what the body's already doing. Now, one of the principles in all of these formulas is that the body is always detoxing, okay? And this is a misconception. People are being told, especially by those who have products, that everybody's toxic and everybody needs to detox, and you need to do it this way, and you need to take this product, and most of these things are aimed at stimulating the colon. Well, there's some truth, and that is, yes, everybody is toxic, but that doesn't mean that you have a toxicity case. Everybody's toxic because we're breaking down food and there's waste products. That's why we have bowel movements, and that's why we empty the bladder, and that's why we exhale, okay? 50% of what the body is doing is excreting. 50% is assimilating nutrients, okay? So the body is basically constantly assimilating nutrients, inhaling energy from the atmosphere, assimilating nutrients from the soil through the food, assimilating sunlight in the food, and then it's metabolizing it. And metabolism is basically just separating the pure energy from the waste. And there's always waste, and there should be, okay? So the idea that we are toxic and we need to clean everything out and have shiny clean colons is actually very dangerous, because what it does is people end up developing laxative dependency. They end up doing excessive fasting. They end up harming their digestive system. They end up losing too much weight. They end up losing muscle mass because they're not getting enough protein. There's a lot of problems that come when people get obsessed about detox. What we need to think about instead is natural detox. In other words, what's the body already doing? And so as we go through this, I'll just give a couple other ideas here. One is, if you go out for a walk, you're supporting the body's natural detox mechanism, okay? If you get a good night of sleep, you're detoxing. That's crucial, because you're detoxing not only at the level of the liver, but your brain is detoxing also. And that's why insomnia and sleep disorders cause increase of toxicity. But you don't get rid of that kind of toxicity through extensive fasting or flushing, because that will make your insomnia worse, okay? So what you do instead is you nourish the body, and that helps you get good sleep, and that helps your brain chemistry to be reset naturally. So you're actually detoxing when you get high quality nutrition, because it's supporting the detoxification mechanisms. So that's a basic principle. We're detoxing when we drink the right amount of the right kind of fluids. We're detoxing every time we have healthy food, all right? So all of these things are things that we can support. Let's look at the first recipe here. Tulsi tea, very nice for supporting the respiratory system. You don't have to do anything else. Just drink the Tulsi tea, and it's going to be detoxifying at a very gentle, ongoing level for the respiratory system. Now, Yerba Santa tincture. This is a beautiful plant. It's got a lot of aromatic compounds in it, and it's an expectorant. So that's why it's in this formula here. Or you can also chew the cardamom seeds. You can add the tincture and chew the cardamom, or do one or the other. Now, cardamom is going to have a carminative effect, meaning it's going to get rid of gas and bloating. That's going to have a detoxifying effect on the respiratory system. Anything we do to improve digestion will support natural detoxification in the lungs. The Yerba Santa is a specific herb to help break up congestion. Now, for the aromatherapy part, aromatherapy does have a direct link and immediate benefit for detoxification of the respiratory system, because aromatherapy comes in direct contact with the mucous membranes of the lungs. So therefore, anything that is being used as a chest compress, direct inhalation, inhalation from steam, the diffuser, and so forth, anything that comes in direct contact with the sinus mucous membranes first, and then the respiratory mucous membranes of the lungs second, that will stimulate a decongestant and expectorant function. In addition to that, the essential oil compounds are also going to be anti-inflammatory, and also they're going to support our immune system. So these are all ways that we can think about detoxification for the lungs. And here we have a nice blend for the diffuser: eucalyptus, cardamom, and lemongrass. Just use it in the diffuser. Lemongrass can be a little bit irritant if you put it on your skin, but you can also dilute this in a carrier oil and put it on your chest, okay? Formula 2, thyme leaves. Thyme is the #1 herb for respiratory problems. And so we can go to the next page if it isn't already. And you're going to find thyme in a lot of respiratory condition formulas for different respiratory conditions. And you're also going to find thyme essential oil in very dilute amounts, very low concentrations, in cough syrups. It is one of the best expectorants overall. So here we can equate expectoration with respiratory detoxification. So here we're adding a couple more herbs that are demulcent and expectorant. Demulcent meaning that they're going to moisturize, they're going to have a mucogenic kind of effect. And demulcent and mucogenic and expectorant are all very closely related terms. So basically, it's going to liquefy the phlegm in the chest, and it's going to make it easier to expectorate. So that's the detoxification that we're supporting. That doesn't mean that you have to have congestion for this to work, because if you take a little bit of licorice tincture occasionally or a little bit of mullein tincture occasionally, it's very supportive to the respiratory mucous membrane. And the respiratory mucous membrane needs support in lots of different environments, okay? So again, the fennel seeds, same concept as the cardamom seeds. You get rid of gas and bloating in the upper GI tract. It's going to be very supportive of respiratory health. Direct link. So oils, these are all conifer oils, and these are a few of my favorite conifer oils. The conifer oils have a specific therapeutic relationship with the respiratory system: silver fir, pinon pine, and juniper. These can all be mixed in equal parts. That means you can, if you want to make a larger blend for the diffuser, 1 ounce of each, and then just put the drops directly in the diffuser, or you can dilute it in a carrier oil to apply to the chest. And this is also relatively safe to put in a bath, okay? So you can put 3 or 4 drops of this blend, or you could actually just put 3 or 4 drops of one of these oils, 3 or 4 drops total on a bath. Just mix it around, or you could rub that into a cup of Epsom salt, for example. Put 3 or 4 or 5 drops of the blend or one of these oils mixed with Epsom salt, pour that in the bath, and then that's going to give you a beautiful aromatherapy treatment for your lungs. All right, so let's look at digestive detoxification. We've already covered digestive detoxification in previous formulas, because anything that gets rid of gastritis is detoxifying to the digestive system. Anything that helps to enhance the flow of bile, to move the bowels comfortably and efficiently, such as the dandelion that we talked about, the cholagogue, but even the bulking laxatives like flax for the colon. Anything that's helping the peristalsis to be regular and healthy and comfortable is going to be helping with digestive detoxification. So again, here we have Triphala powder. And we mentioned that earlier, mild laxative. And I'm giving a very low dose, because even though Triphala is mild and it is a bowel tonic and it has lots of other functions of supporting nutrition and increasing assimilation and so forth, some people can develop a laxative dependency with Triphala if you start taking too much too frequently. And I would say that that's when people start to take a teaspoon every night before bed. It can actually start to make the bowels more sluggish. It can be counterproductive. So very small dose here. And then if you mix it with the slippery elm, what that does is it also has a soothing demulcent effect for inflammation. And again, we're going to see the fennel as one of the main essential oils for helping the peristalsis of the digestive system. Cardamom and caraway oils, again, for gas and bloating. So here, Formula 2, we're talking about the aromatics again, and we're also talking about gentian. But here we're going to bring in a specific herb for the liver, and that is going to be milk thistle seed. And you can find the milk thistle seed easily in various products, and you can find it standardized to specific levels of silymarin. And silymarin is the active ingredient of milk thistle seed, and it is well known as a hepatoprotector, and it helps to detoxify the liver. So milk thistle and silymarin are widely used when people are in recovery from addictions, where their liver has taken a beating, and alcoholism. It is also widely used in cases where you have real toxicity, okay? Not the kind of imaginary internet toxicity where somebody wants you to buy a laxative. Real toxicity where somebody has been involved in an industrial accident and exposed to toxic chemicals. Okay, milk thistle is really good for protecting the liver at that level. So that is brought in here, and it's also in the base of aromatics, okay? Lavender and geranium in mineral salts in the bath. One of the concepts here is that the more relaxed our digestive system is, the more it will naturally detox itself, okay? Keep in mind that nervous tension translates immediately into disturbance of the digestive system, which translates immediately into increase of inflammation, increase of either peristalsis with diarrhea, nervous anxiety type of diarrhea, or constipation. And so basically, nervous tension increases toxicity throughout the body. Nervous tension increases toxicity in the musculoskeletal system. Nervous tension and anxiety increase toxicity in the digestive tract. So anything you can do to relax your nervous system will automatically help the digestive system to be more balanced, and that will help with the peristalsis, and that will basically find the natural level of the biorhythm of detoxification through the digestive tract. So lavender and geranium, but any flower oil basically is very nice for this particular purpose. And that could be ylang ylang, it could be the neroli, it could be rose, it could be clary sage. All of these essential oils can be used very nicely with Epsom salt dispersed in the bath. Formula 3, Schisandra berries are very well known. And there's a recipe here, 1 tablespoon, simmer per cup for 15 minutes. And this is hepatoprotective. Schisandra berries are one of the most important adaptogenic herbs that is specifically protective for the liver. But here you have a rotating formula here, 1 per dose, okay? And that is 5 drops of tincture of andrographis, or 1 capsule of high quality turmeric, or 1 capsule of milk thistle. So this is actually a long-term program. And this is something that I want to point out about all of these things here, okay? In the digestive formula, if you look at the dosage, the frequency of the dosage, what does it say? Formula 1, 2 times a week, all right? That's a major difference strategically from doing something really aggressive, okay, where you are taking a lot of juices and you're taking a lot of laxative herbs and you're going through a cathartic experience. It's actually not good to do this, especially if people have been doing it a lot, and it's not good to do it for elderly people, and it's not good to do that for people who are underweight, and so forth. There's a lot of people who should not use that approach at all, but some people still need to have some detoxification. So what's the concept then? 2 times a week in Formula 1, okay? And then in Formula 2, 4 times a week, and then 2 times a week we're adding the tincture. In Formula 3, it's half a cup 3 times a week of the Schisandra, but then we're adding the tincture of andrographis, the turmeric, and the milk thistle. We're doing that on a rotating basis. So that means that every week, all we are taking is 1/2 cup of Schisandra tea 3 times, and we're taking 1 dose of andrographis, 1 dose of turmeric, and 1 dose of milk thistle, all right? That kind of approach is very safe for long-term support of gentle detoxification. So it's a very simple equation, right? If you aggressively flush your system, you may have dramatic results and you may feel dramatically better, but most likely there will be repercussions that come once that effect wears off. And one of the repercussions is that when you go back to a normal diet, you may not feel good Okay, and so what that'll do is it'll set up this pattern where people will basically need to flush their system more and more to feel good. And that's not progress, okay? That's actually weakening your digestive power. So this approach is much healthier and more balanced, because what we're doing is we're strengthening the biorhythms as opposed to attacking things and forcing our body to work hard, which is actually increasing our sensitivities and our ability, it's decreasing our ability to digest well. Okay, so the oil combination, very standard here, Caraway and Fennel oils. Those are all good. And I will mention one thing here, and that is with these formulas, there's a lot of versatility in how you combine them. So in the first section, you may find that one formula works better than another for treating dyspepsia. Lots of formulas there because it's very, very common. Indigestion is very common. 7 or 8 formulas there. You may find that one of those formulas works really well. Another one doesn't. But you can also use those ingredients somewhat interchangeably as well. So you don't have to stick to these formulas with any kind of strict approach. You can take one herb from one formula and you can add it with another herb from another formula, because a lot of these are very interchangeable. These are specific formulas with specific ways of preparing and administering, but there's a lot of flexibility because all of these are in the same general categories. All right, so let's move on now to the next to last section, and next is urinary. And same basic idea here, we're doing something gently. Nettles tea is going to be a nice, gentle tea to take, a half a cup, 2 to 4 times a week. And nettles is a very nutritive herb, and it's also a mild diuretic, and it specifically gets rid of nitrogenous waste, which is part of uric acid that builds up. Okay, so uric acid, which is the cause of gout, can be treated very specifically. But again, you don't want to be drinking gallons of this, every day. You want to just take it gradually. Now, if you want to increase the diuretic effect, corn silk is very nice. Now, this can be not only beneficial for cleansing the blood, but also for bladder irritation and inflammation. This type of formula is really nice for chronic cystitis, for example. All right. So Carnivore Oils, spruce, pine, fir, and juniper. And if you blend that with a carrier oil, it's going to be very nice for the lumbar area. Just massage that on the kidney area, lumbar area. Formula 2, corn silk again. Corn silk, mild, soothing, demulcent, diuretic, okay? Chamomile and hibiscus flowers. Hibiscus also soothing, diuretic, okay? Goldenrod tincture, again, soothing, diuretic. So these are all going to be very helpful for basically gently increasing the flow of urine. Okay, so Formula 3, very similar, but we're also going to bring in alfalfa and red clover and pipsessoa. So these herbs are all going to have a very similar and somewhat interchangeable kind of effect, and that's going to be very soothing for the urinary system. And of course, detoxifying the urinary system like this in a very gentle kind of way is also going to be very beneficial for detoxifying other things as well. And if you are detoxifying the liver with something like milk thistle, you can actually use some of the urinary detoxification methods kind of alternating because they support each other. Okay, so lymphatic. It looks like we're kind of winding things down here, so I just want to bring this to your attention. Burdock is one of the major herbs for detoxifying the lymphatic system. And an aromatic bath is also very nice because you can put burdock in the bath, and you can also put a little bit of ginger powder in the bath, and that will have a stimulating effect on the lymphatic system. Formula 2, ginger and wild indigo and echinacea. Now this is more of a clinical level herb. Wild indigo is very strong, so notice it's 10 drops tincture, not 10 droppers. And you can also see that there's a new essential oil here, lentisque. Okay, lentisque is a unique oil which is very good for lymphatic drainage. Okay, and again, poke root oil, apply over congested lymph glands. This is more of a clinical level application. Okay, echinacea is very good for lymphatic detoxification, and then tea tree and lemon. Again, you can mix that with the poke root oil, and it's very good for congested lymph glands. Finally, I just want to bring everybody's attention to the L.Ac formula. Okay, it's right here, how you make it and how you use it. Okay, so that was a pretty speedy overview of everything. I'm just going to go ahead and open it up for general discussion. There's plenty to talk about. And so, Paula, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay. Yes, I agree, David. That was a tremendous amount of information in a short amount of time, but really organized so well, and your commentary with each is incredibly valuable. So thanks so much for that.
Great, thanks.
Let's get to some questions here, comments, many things. Just a second here. You mentioned, in the beginning about diffusers, and you said how many drops you put in it depends on the diffuser. So can you talk about that a little bit, of what's different about different diffusers, and how do we know how many drops to put in?
Right, well, it's pretty self-explanatory, actually. You're going to find two basic types of diffusers. One is going to be the water type. That's going to be a bowl that you are going to put essential oils into, and then that is going to ionize. That's an ionizing, vaporizing type of diffuser. So what's going to happen is when you turn it on, the water is going to come out as a vapor, and that's going to carry the essential oils in it. Now, the advantage of this particular type of diffuser is that they're very easy to clean, okay? And they don't clog up because there's no plumbing in them. You just pour the essential oils on top of the water. The disadvantage is that it doesn't give a real highly concentrated amount of oil. It's nice, but it's not highly concentrated. They're very easy to clean, and that's why they're very popular. They don't clog up, and they're good for general background aroma. Okay, so that one, you don't need to be very specific about the dosage. You can just sprinkle lots of essential oil on there. And the other type is going to be the atomizing type. And those are going to be the diffusers where you put the pure essential oil into it, and it's going to come out in a strong mist. For that, you don't have to worry about the dosage, because it's only going to be diffused directly from the bottle that you plug into it. So I hope that's helpful.
Okay, thanks so much. You also mentioned about, as you went through the formulas, about the time for simmering the herbs is generally 10 to 15 minutes, and all the herbs that you were using were simmering herbs, not anything that was being boiled or done for a long time. But the question is, why not longer? Why not do this 30 minutes or even soak it overnight?
Well, you can, but we have to start somewhere with these formulas. So the aromatic herbs, we don't want to boil too long because the essential oil content's going to come out. Okay, that's the main idea. But there's all kinds of details with this that we could spend hours and hours on. Like, for example, if you steep chamomile for 2 or 3 minutes, it's going to have a sweeter flavor, and it's going to be much more relaxing to the nervous system. But if you steep chamomile for 15 minutes, it's going to have a totally different effect. All right, it's going to extract a lot more of its bitter principles and anti-inflammatory principles, and so that extraction of chamomile is actually much more effective if you have a cold or a flu with a fever. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's one example of why we talk about the differences. Okay, so another one would be nettle. All right, so if you are looking for the effect of nettle as more of a detoxifying herb for the blood, then this, a lighter brewing, such as what I suggested, will be more appropriate. But if you want nettle more as a source of minerals, then you want to soak it overnight. Okay, so it gets really concentrated. So every one of those herbs have these different kinds of variations on it. And so for a general audience and a general presentation like this, that's why we start with something. And so all the doses that I have given are on the low side, and all the frequency is on the low side. And one of the main reasons for that is because I don't know anybody, and I don't know their health, and I don't know what types of medications they might be on. So these are some of the reasons why we have to start with low doses and low frequency, because we have to find some general level where people can use herbs with no real education. But then when it comes to, okay, this person is sensitive to, this person has hypertension, well, I've got to say something about licorice. Okay, so it gets really complicated when you get into more specific details about each of these herbs and their applications. And I did give quite a bit of specific information. You know, don't take bitters for an extended period of time. Okay, that type of thing. Don't take laxatives for an extended period of time. Those are simple principles, and it's a good place to start, and it's a basic home formulary. But, you know, if somebody is listening and they want to use this information and they're on multiple medications and they're elderly, I would always advise just go very, very slowly and always consult with somebody, okay? Because those kind of situations are just, you know, complicated. But this is a general home formulary level. It's safe for everybody, low doses, low frequency, very low risk overall.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. And I think that it's important, anybody that we're working with, is to start slow, start at a low dose, see how things are being addressed, and how the person is handling it, how they're responding to it, and work up from there. But I think that there's a very, very common tendency for many people in our culture, more is better. And they see something, it's like, wow, if I take 10 drops, what if I take 100 drops? I'll be cured overnight. You know, I work with that so much in my practice of getting people to calm down and work at a pace their body can tolerate, right?
Well, that's the same problem with essential oils. You know, people think that more is better, and it's not. More is dangerous.
Question about bergamot with sun sensitivity. That was new to me. And the question is it the same when it's used internally and topically?
Bergamot should not be taken internally, okay? And here I think we might have a little confusion about species. Bergamot essential oil is a citrus. It's used primarily in perfumery. It is used in aromatherapy, in diffusers. It does have a very nice calming effect when used in diffusers and for aromatherapy, but the essential oil should never be put on the skin, okay? Especially undiluted. Diluted, it reduces the risk, but it still has a risk. And the reason for that is because it is highly phototoxic. Now, bergamot internally refers to an herb, okay? And there is an herb called wild bergamot, and that is Monarda species. And wild bergamot grows in the Midwest, grows in the Rocky Mountain areas also, and it makes a beautiful tea. And it is very calming to the nervous system also, but it's totally different. Bergamot essential oil is not bergamot herb, totally different species. And so bergamot essential oil, like all essential oils, should not be taken internally. Bergamot, wild bergamot, which is also known as bee balm. A lot of people know it as bee balm. Monarda species is a beautiful aromatic tea that you can make from the dried herb, the flowers and leaves, and same basic preparation as making peppermint. Any of these infusions here, 1 teaspoon per cup, steeped for 10 to 15 minutes. So that's the difference.
Great, thank you. Sorry, juggling things here. Just my own comment here, and my own personal one here is about anorexia. My favorite thing that you shared here is that the spirit is disturbed. And it's such a different way. And this is really a David Crow statement here. The spirit is disturbed because you're bringing in the spirituality of it. You're bringing in more than the physicality of this condition. And so thank you for that. I'm going to post that big time someplace.
Okay, great. Well, that's not from me. That's from Chinese medicine. That's a classic diagnosis in Chinese medicine.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll take it back as a David Crow.
You can attribute it to me if you want, but
I did. You
it's
said
really
it.
right. But I think anybody can easily understand that it has more psychological and spiritual dimensions than physical, although brain chemistry is obviously very disordered in these kind of situations.
So you talked a lot about bile, activating bile and healthy bile in several of the formulas. Was there something that would be, any of the formulas that would be specific for gallbladders, particularly aging gallbladder that are kind of sludgy and developing small stones and things like that?
Okay, that's a very good question and something to make note of here. Mm-hmm. And that is that when there are gallbladder problems, you really have to have a better diagnostic idea of what's going on. Because whenever the gallbladder is inflamed or blocked, sluggish, there's different degrees where you can treat it with herbs, specifically the bitter cholagogues that stimulate the flow of bile, and other degrees where you cannot. So the bitter herbs are going to stimulate the flow of bile. And obviously, if the gallbladder is somewhat sluggish, but it can pass the bile, that's the perfect situation for using the bitter cholagogues because it's going to improve liver health. It's going to improve the production of bile, it's going to improve the quality of the bile, and it's going to improve the flow of the bile, which will then improve all the digestive functions all the way down. Mm-hmm. So using the bitter cholagogic herbs to improve bile flow is very healthy. And that's the basic concept behind the European tradition of taking bitters before meals, is it stimulates that flow. But if you have gallstones and you take a cholagogue, it can cause real problems because you're increasing the flow of bile through the gallbladder. Okay, and there is a very common myth that we can dispel here, and that is if you do the so-called gallbladder flush with olive oil, those little green pellets floating around in the toilet are not gallstones. Okay?
It's oil.
It's basically olive oil.
It's coagulated oil. It looks like.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, David.
And furthermore, if you do have gallstones, pumping all kinds of olive oil through your system like that is extremely dangerous. You could actually injure your gallbladder from it. So this is an example of how herbs can be either extremely beneficial at a preventive level when there's low-grade problems, or extremely problematic when there's actually a medical problem. So what we can say here is that the bitter cholagogic herbs are contraindicated in active gallbladder disease. That's the simple way to understand it. If you do not have active gallbladder disease, the bitter cholagogic herbs can be extremely beneficial for preventing it and for treating general and improving and treating general liver and gallbladder health.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks. So by saying gallbladder disease, would that, if somebody had been scanned and they saw a few small stones, would that be considered gallbladder disease? If there's any stones at all, any kind of sledge?
Well, gravel is different, okay, and theoretical. Okay, now this is where we move out of the realm of general herbal advice, and we move into the realm of clinical herbal medicine. So there are specific details about this that clinicians need to be aware of, and there's a certain size of the stone. If it reaches larger than that, then the herb should not be used. But there's so many different variables in this that you know, this is a situation where you almost have to be talking to the doctor who's doing the diagnostics of this, because it could be a small stone, but the duct can also be narrowed. Okay, so in those kind of situations, I think the best advice or the best strategy would be that you need to have a very clear diagnosis. And if it was me, I would just ask the specialist, can this stone pass easily and safely? Mm-hmm. You know, if somebody was telling me, well, I think you need to have your gallbladder removed, I would just say, well, how big is the stone and how big is the duct and can it pass easily? And if they say, yeah, it can pass easily, then I would take some bitter cholagogic herbs. And if they say, well, if you start stimulating the gallbladder, it might get lodged in there and you may end up going to the emergency room and have it taken out anyway, I wouldn't mess around with it, you know. Right. That doesn't mean I would necessarily go and have my gallbladder taken out right away, but you know, I would also be extremely cautious about using herbal medicines that way.
It's a great caveat there. If they can be passed easily, is my understanding that small stones can actually be more dangerous than large stones, because large stones won't go through a narrow duct. The small stones can and can get lodged and get into the pancreatic duct too, and there you've got a life-threatening immediate situation. So, okay, we'll move off gallbladder, but thank you for that information on that.
Exactly.
The formula under lymphatic, there was the herb lentisk oil. Is that right? Is that how you said it?
Yes.
Can you talk about that a little bit? It was new to us.
Yes. Okay. This is an essential oil that's widely known in French aromatherapy. It is distilled widely on the island of Corsica. It's actually a relative of the pistachio tree. It is it's in the pistachio family. It looks very similar, but its leaves are distilled. So lentisk oil is used for decongesting fluids. And therefore, it is a first choice for lymphatic massage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so in French aromatherapy, their thinking on essential oils is extremely simple a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because distilleries are actually tourist attractions. And so all day long, tourists are coming into the distillery and they're asking the same questions over and over. What do you use lentisque for? Okay, so they just have these big charts up on the wall, and they will just have one or two indications. Okay, so the main indication for lentisque essential oil is in massage for moving the lymphatic system. And that's just taken straight from French aromatherapy. So okay. It's good. Now, another indication is that it can be very beneficial for people who are overweight. And obesity, of course, produces a whole range of problems and increases inflammation in the body and so forth. Mm-hmm. And lentisque is also very helpful for that as well. It's comforting and helps to move the fluid stagnation. So wherever there's fluid stagnation, lentisque can be used externally in massage for basically improving circulation.
Thank you. Beautiful. All right, this is I knew this was going to come up, and it's an important one because there's a ton of folks using EOs as a result of Young Living and doTERRA. So do you have any words of wisdom for getting EOs out of the system, or
what does that mean?
I'm trying to get this, or a place to go to see, or a place. How can we see how long they do we know how long they persist in our bodies? I guess the concern here is after your talk is that a lot of people are taking these formulas. Are they dangerous at the level that people are taking, and particularly when people are doing them internally? How do you get them out of the system, and how long do they persist? That's how I'm interpreting it.
Right, okay. Well, this is complicated, okay? Now, one of the main things that people are discovering the hard way is that you should not take essential oils internally. And one of the ways that they're discovering this is because somebody told them, take oregano oil for this bacterial infection and your immune system will be benefited, you'll feel great, okay? So they will take a drop or two of oregano oil and they feel great. But then they continue doing that and then they don't feel great. An even better example is a very common prescription: take 2 to 3 drops of lemon oil on water once or twice or 3 times a day. And you can do that for a very long time, and it's very rich in antioxidants. Well, just because it's rich in antioxidants doesn't mean that it's not going to destroy your gut, okay? And a very simple way to understand this is that 2 or 3 drops of lemon oil is the equivalent of like eating several lemons. So why would you want to just eat several lemons at a time? And what kind of effect is that going to have on you? Well, the thing that is really important that people understand is that a lot of times when they start these things, they actually do feel better.
Yeah.
But that's because it's doing something immediately. Now, if they do something once and it feels better, then good, but then stop. Because then the next thing that happens is that when they persist with doing this, and there's a lot of cases that have been reported of permanent esophageal damage from internal ingestion of essential oils. And this lemon essential oil is a very good example of it, because essential oils basically are caustic, okay? They have the same consistency as gasoline chemically, okay? They will basically dissolve cells. And one of the most ridiculous things that I've ever heard, and this is coming from a medical authority hired by one of these companies, is that the gastric mucosa cannot be adversely affected because it's lined with mucus cells. Well, that's precisely why it can be affected.
Exactly.
Because the essential oils are going to damage those cells.
What medical school did they go to?
You know, the claims coming from educated medical people who are in the service of these companies are just shocking.
Yeah.
So what happens then, people may get a benefit after doing it for a very short period of time. But then what happens is that they start to notice gradually increased discomfort in the GI tract. Maybe it's irritation in the throat. Maybe they start to feel a little reflux. Maybe they start to feel a little heartburn, like that. That's a very common way that this starts to develop. So they stop doing it. But then what's really sad about this is that the symptoms just keep getting worse and worse.
Yeah.
All right. Until they finally have to go and, you know, have endoscopic exam, and then the doctor tells them, well, you've got serious inflammation and erosion of your esophagus. Well, so what's happened? The lining of the esophagus and the stomach has been damaged. Now, it's not a question of how long will the essential oil stay in the system. It's how much damage will it do and how long will it take to recover from the damage? Okay, because the essential oil compounds themselves are going to pass through and out of the system relatively quickly. Okay, the issue is not about, oh, we have to detoxify the essential oils. That's not it. What we have to do is we have to bring the inflammation down that they have caused. Yeah. Okay, so that's again the same issue as putting it on the skin, where people are being told, oh, that burning of your skin is actually good for you. Well, people will actually just keep doing that over and over, and the burning will get worse and worse. Now, that doesn't mean that the essential oil is still there on the skin, you know, a few hours later. It means that the dermatitis is still there. And so now we have to treat the dermatitis. It's not about, okay, you have to treat the essential oils. You have to treat the inflammation. That's the answer to that.
Yes. All right. Great. Thank you. And what this same question from the same person, trying to determine the half-life of herbs is.
I'm not clear
like how long that's going to stay in the system.
Well, that depends on every herb. There's all kinds of herbs, and they work in different ways. And you know, it's, you know, once we assimilate an herb, once it's in the blood, once, you know, I mean, there's countless physiological dimensions to that particular question. There's no such thing as you get the herb out of your system, okay? You digest the herb, it's in your system, okay? There's all kinds of effects of that herb, okay? But I'm not really clear on exactly what the question is or how to approach answering it. It's a very complicated.
I think that they're likening it to medications, where medications have a half-life, and where herbs like the EOs, I mean, they come in, they have their effect, and they're going to move through. So, yes, I agree with you. It's going to take a different amount of time, but it's not that long.
Right. Well, okay. So you have to look at this on a case-by-case basis with every species. Okay. If you drink a cup of Tulsi tea, it's totally different. You know, if you drink a cup of Tulsi tea once, it's totally different than if you took way too much licorice for months at a time. Okay. So if you took a lot of licorice repeatedly for a long period of time, you're going to really develop some problems with fluid retention, hypertension, kidney problems. Okay, that may take some time to recover from. It's the same concept as, you know, as the essential oils. It's not that the licorice is in your system anymore. It's that it's had a very powerful long-term adverse reaction on your adrenal system, basically. So that's how we have to look at it, is that it's not the herb itself, the compounds of the herb itself that are so important. It's what the effects are of the herb. And I would say that it's not so much, oh, you got to get the herb out of your system. It's really if the herbs are causing some problems. But
Yes.
this is universal. I mean, we could say the same thing about gluten, you know. How long does it take to get gluten out of your system? Well, it's not getting gluten out of your system that's important. It's realizing that you don't want to put the gluten in there in the first place, because if you do, it's going to create all of these adverse reactions. Okay, so I think that's a better way to look at it.
Mm-hmm. I do too. And not certain I really want to close on that note, David, but I think that's the last of our questions. So do you have any closing comments, any closing thoughts you want to leave us with?
Well, just thank you very much to everybody, and to you, Paula, and James, back in the admin side of things. Thank you so much for the invitation. Yes. And I hope that everybody learned something, and learned certainly about some safety with essential oils, and learned a few formulas that might be helpful. So thank you for the invitation.
You're welcome. I have a few closing comments, everybody. I'll just take a minute. I want to remind everybody again, since there were so many questions, that the webinar was recorded and it'll be available with the slides on the Hawthorne website under archived webinars in just a few days. There's also a survey to fill out after the webinar ends, and it always helps us to have your feedback and any comments about this presentation and the series, and I certainly appreciate you taking the time. I want to remind you about our next All About Alumni presentation is tomorrow, March 6th at noon, with our MSHN Jill Morand graduate. She's going to be presenting on her postgrad activities. We've had so many great presentations on this, so you can check those out in our archives too. And I want to let you remember, this was part 1 of David Crow's presentation. We'll have part 2 on combining herbs and essential oils for relaxing and strengthening the nervous system on March 19th. That's 2 weeks from today. And like David, I sure hope we inspired you to learn more about health and nutrition with all the webinars we've offered here with David and over the years, and remind you about all the programs and other courses that Hawthorne has. So you can check those out on our website. I want to thank everybody for taking the time. I know it takes time, and I appreciate that you're here and you're showing up. Also grateful for working with James Madarnelli, who engineers these webinars. Thank you, James. And with that, I want to say this concludes today's presentation. Thank you again, David.
Thank you again. Thank you to everybody.
I wish everybody, thanks everybody. I want to wish you all the best of health, and I look forward to learning more together at our webinar series. And until then, I'm going to continue practicing combining herbs and essential oils, because what we practice grows stronger. So I hope you'll join me in that too, and keep celebrating Hawthorne's accreditation and share the news, everybody. We're so proud and giddy. We want everybody to know. Thank you. Take good care. Bye for now.